Hey Lunatics, what's up? It's Asylum Reviews here, coming at you guys with my Monday Night Raw review for the April 15th, 2019 episode, Day 1 of the Superstar Shakeup. This was a pretty average show. I'm not going to say it was great, and I'm not going to say it was bad, but overall it was somewhat decent, so we'll talk about it. We had a bunch of different stars from SmackDown come to Raw, and then on SmackDown, we had a bunch of different stars from Raw go to SmackDown. So really, everybody's changed brands here. There's one particular superstar, however, that's changed brands every time we've had a Superstar Shakeup, and that man is The Miz. So we'll talk about that. So it says here, the Superstar Shakeup brings with the most start of the new WWE season. Stars who have spent the past year defining one brand will change sides, leading to completely new shows on Raw and SmackDown Live. The first night promised a hopeful refresh of a tired roster. Going 3 hours each week, most of the show had been overexposed. It was time for talent on both brands to take a step forward. This was a big deal for the show's world champion Seth Rollins, who was lacking a clear contender after Brock Lesnar walked out following his WrestleMania 35 loss to the Architect. Who would arrive to take that shot at the champ? Would he even remain on Raw or swap brands with WWE Champion Kofi Kingston? Also, Becky Lynch was mostly exempt from the brand switch, as she is the champion of both rosters, but she has already begun a rivalry with Lacey Evans. It was certain others would also step up from both brands, but with Becky 2 belts likely to be forced to defend both her titles often. This event is one of the rare times in WWE where they shock you from every angle. It's a surprising 3-hour show that has the potential to set both brands on a better path or unbalance the rosters entirely. So, like I mentioned, The Miz being that certain star who's going to switch brands every time they have a shakeup is exactly what happened here. So it says here, The Miz heads to Raw and takes one last shot at Shane McMahon. Show kicks off with Stephanie and Shane McMahon coming in the ring, introducing everybody to Monday Night Raw and how welcome to Superstar Shakeup, blah blah blah. After Shane O'Mac taunted the crowd, the first move from the blue brand to Raw was revealed as The Miz as he arrived, but you didn't see him at first until he came out from behind and he attacked his rival Shane McMahon. So he beat down the former SmackDown Live commissioner with his fist and a steel chair until his rival retreated up the ramp. Now there was this point where Miz was started bleeding, and everybody was wondering like how that happened. So I looked it up, and it apparently it said that when Miz hit Shane with the steel chair while he was in the crowd, as soon as he hit him with the steel chair, I guess he accidentally hit himself. And that's what caused him to have that nasty gash across his face. It's because he was bleeding pretty badly. But overall, he looked like a badass, so that was cool. However, this kind of went a little long. Although it had great climax, it went a little long. So I'm not going to take anything away from what Miz did. But, he got his licks in while he could. The A-lister moving to Raw was a smart move to keep him and Shane away from each other for a while, as their feud is likely going to be continued to be stretched out. But as he finds his way with his new babyface role, the A-lister should become one of Raw's top stars. It will be interesting to see what comes of the move, as he could legitimately be the brand's top face based on how the roster shake out. It'll be really interesting here. Now, here's something that I was just not happy with whatsoever. For WWE to call up the War Raiders, the Viking Experience. Yeah, you heard me right. The Viking Experience. What the actual fuck is wrong with Mr. McMahon? Why? Why are you going to call up the War Raiders this early? They weren't even expected to be called up. They just got called up randomly for the fucking shakeup as the Viking Experience. They're no longer Hanson and Rowe, the War Raiders of NXT, the ones that we all knew and loved, War Machine from Ring of Honor. No. They're going by this new name now, the Viking Experience. So Hanson is known as Ivar. What the fuck kind of name is that? And then Rowe is known as Eric. E-R-I-K, not E-R-I-C. I don't even know what this is, man. For them to call up the War Raiders and just completely repackage them, fine. But don't give them such a shitty-ass name like the Viking Experience. That sounds like something I'd be watching on the fucking History Channel. That's not a fucking tag team. Are you kidding me? Oh my god. Anyways, so we had an 8-man tag team match. The Viking Experience were supposedly heels in this role here. I don't know why. Because they're one of the top babyface tag teams of NXT. They're the current NXT tag team champions. And they didn't come out with their titles. Another thing to keep noting there. And they teamed with the Revival to take on Ricochet, Aleister Black, and the current Raw Tag Team Champions, Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. Now, Ricochet and Aleister Black were officially declared part of Monday Night Raw before the War Raiders arrived under the new names Ivar and Eric, the Viking Experience. The big men showcased their power and helped the Revival dominate the Raw Tag Team Champions, Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. While Long Island's IZ managed to get the hot tag and save his partner late in the contest, Ivar and Eric caught Ryder with the fallout and took their first win on the main roster. Now, obviously, you knew that since the War Raiders had their first match on Raw, you knew they were going to win. I'm not going to call them the Viking Experience because that is just a terrible, terrible freaking name. Now, I was hearing some other thing that the other name that they wanted to call them was the Berserkers. You know, I would have preferred that a lot better than the fucking Viking Experience. What the hell? I don't even know, bro. The Viking Experience. It's such a terrible, terrible name. Literally, whoever came up with that name should just be terminated. Ridiculous. And then another thing that doesn't make any sense. When they do the war thing during their entrance, it makes no sense for them to do it now because War Raiders is not in their name anymore. It's the fucking Viking Experience. So what are you supposed to do, like a new finger thing with your fucking Viking Experience bullshit? No, get out of here with that. Look, I'm not going to take anything away from the match. The match was good. It was really good, honestly. It wasn't as great when we first saw Ricochet and Aleister Black and the War Raiders at TakeOver New York. Now, it was nothing compared to that, but it was a good match. So I'm not going to take anything away from the match. You know, it was good with a ton of talent in the arena at once. No one was talking about the wrestling quality of the surprise appearance of the War Raiders on the main roster. All that mattered here was WWE making the ridiculous decision to change the NXT Tag Team Champions name. They shouldn't even have come up in the main roster yet, but it was even more frustrating to see them completely change with their move to Raw. Even if WWE decided they couldn't have War in the name of the team, there were much better ways of changing their names. And I think that's probably the only reason why they changed their names, because they don't want War on TV. Are you kidding me? So anyways, moving on, Finn Balor, the Intercontinental Champion, he took on the newest member of the Raw roster, Andrade Cien Almas. Andrade made his way to Monday Night Raw to take on Finn Balor, and this was a fucking fantastic match. I enjoyed this match really, really so much, man. This was great. Andrade arrived to Raw with Zelina Vega. Thank God he didn't go alone. If he would have came to Raw alone, knowing how terrible Monday Night Raw is, if he would have came to Raw alone without Zelina Vega, he would have been buried. But thank God Zelina's with him. So he arrived on Raw, taunting Intercontinental Champion Finn Balor ahead of their first ever match. This was very physical and intense throughout as both got close to the victory. Neither man could quite pull off on his own. Vega played the key role, catching the Extraordinary Man with a Hurricane Rana into the steel barricade, which allowed El Idolo to hit the hammerlock DDT for the win. So Andrade beats Balor in his Raw debut. This was an exciting match of styles that could be much better. The two didn't show a ton of chemistry in the first match together, but they could definitely steal the show with time to get to know each other. While Balor makes perfect sense to make the jump to SmackDown, which we all been wanting, it would be odd for him to go out losing. He now has a perfect rival for the coming months that will push him to be better and elevate his title reign. Rey Mysterio comes out to interrupt Elias, but Lars Sullivan makes him pay. Now, after recent clashes with John Cena and The Undertaker, Elias said each legend who went after him was jealous of his greatness. He then declared that the next wrestler to interrupt him would never be able to show his face in WWE again. Out comes Rey Mysterio, sent the musician retreating. And then Lars Sullivan arrives and he wipes out, again, more veterans of the WWE. He takes out Rey. But, you know, the funny thing here is, since Lars came in on the main roster, he's taken out Kurt Angle, the Hardy Boys, and now Rey Mysterio. But out of those three names, you would think that probably the Hardy Boys or Kurt Angle would be the one to, like, throw in some offense on Lars, but it was Rey Mysterio. So that's very, very surprising. So it says here the Master of the 619 gave the Freak his biggest fight yet, but that only fueled Sullivan, who planted Mysterio with a Freak's accident and a sit-down powerbomb. And by the way, that sit-out powerbomb that Lars Sullivan does now, holy shit. I would not want to be in the receiving end of that, because that was just freaking brutal. Elias continues to be the legend magnet, while Sullivan is magnetically attracted to legends. Their stories are oddly linked, mainly because WWE likes to tell only a few stories with its massive collection of older talent. Whether Rey Mysterio is on Raw or SmackDown, his role is the same. He will be putting on great matches and getting a consistent spotlight, but WWE cannot resist keeping him on the same roster as Andrade. Now, one thing to note here is that Rey was supposed to fight Andrade on last week's SmackDown, but the match never happened because I guess Rey was dealing with his ankle injury before his match with Samoa Joe at WrestleMania. But looks like we're going to be putting that match on hold, or that rivalry on hold, suppose, with Rey and Andrade, as Rey is now part of Monday Night Raw, and so is Andrade. So maybe we're probably not going to be seeing the feud right away, but most likely towards SummerSlam, I would assume, or Extreme Rules. We'll see. But yeah, it's great to see Rey Mysterio and Andrade join the Raw roster. The Usos versus Bobby Roode and Chad Gable. Yes, the Usos are now a part of the Raw Tag Team division. Now, this was a good match, but it was spoiled. Now, the reason I say that is because when Bobby Roode and Chad Gable made their entrance, when they showed the graphics on the screen of the tag teams that coming out, oh my god, that was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. You would think that they would show Bobby Roode and Chad Gable. Instead, they showed the Usos, who are not even in the ring. So, a good way to spoil who's coming to Raw. And it was the Usos. So I was like, wow, that was just stupid. Why would they just freaking put the Usos name on the graphics there, only for them to come out afterwards? Like, it just spoils it. Now, for the people that were in the arena, it's better for them because they didn't know what was going on, and they can't see the graphics on the screen because they're in the arena. But for the people watching at home, like I was, yeah, it completely just ruined. So, anyways, but yeah, the match was good. This was the most expected move going to Monday, because the Usos dropped the SmackDown Tag Team titles with the Hardys last week. They've never been on Raw since the brand split and have randomly dropped the SmackDown Tag Team Championships previous week. All the signs pointed to the switch. They will be vital to the Reds brand Tag Team division, which needed clear stars at its head. After a year of Raw appearing to be unsure of how to book tag teams, it should be impossible for tag teams to get ignored now Jimmy and Jay are on the scene. But possibly we could be seeing the Usos take those Raw Tag Team titles in the near future. Count on it. Sami Zayn completely denounces Montreal as his hometown. This was funny. This kind of went on a little bit too long, but it was funny. Sammy got the job done, and he, Sammy's a great heel, and he's great on the mic, and, I'm excited to see what they're going to be doing on now that he's back full-time. So he comes out to rock the salvation for the Montreal crowd, who cannot stop singing his theme song. And, they had a moment of bliss, so Bliss had Sami Zayn as her guest. The underdog from the underground quickly talked them all down, and the crowd turned against him as he taunted the fans. But a moment of bliss barely got started before Zayn walked out on the crowd and headed right out of the arena to escape Montreal as soon as possible. So before Zayn could even say anything, they played his theme song again. Then he started dancing, and he let the crowd, sing his song again when the music stopped. And then they played it one more time. After that third time, that's when Sammy had enough, and he took it out on Montreal. Now, this was magic. It was built on an energetic crowd that was eating up everything Zayn did. The fans adored him right up the point till you got all to hate him. Few get a reaction like this and certainly are not so easily able to twist the crowd against them. But Bliss did not need to be here. In fact, it felt like she was playing the babyface role, and it didn't work. This should have been focused on Zayn and the crowd himself, which I can agree on there. Alexa really didn't have anything to do with this, honestly. So, I don't know. The Iconics, the Raw Women's Tag Team Champions, versus Bayley and a mystery partner, since Sasha is apparently she didn't want to show up this week because she was frustrated about losing those tag team titles to the fucking Iconics. I mean, can you blame her? She didn't appear on both Raw and SmackDown. So, Bayley joined SmackDown, by the way, and we'll talk about that in the SmackDown live review. But there was no sign of Sasha Banks. So maybe when she does come back next week, hopefully we see her on SmackDown, please. So in a backstage video from earlier, the Iconics taunted Bayley as she called Sasha Banks to find out where she is, but the Huggable one stated that she would have to find a new partner for tonight. Naomi arrived to team with Bayley, and they easily defeated the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, with the Raw newcomer hitting a split-legged moonsault on Billie Kay after Bayley took out Peyton Royce. So Naomi is the newest member of the women's division to join Monday Night Raw. You know, Bayley and Naomi as a team makes a lot of sense. They feel like more natural characters working together, both bright and joyful performers. This is also a much better fit for Naomi, whose flashy but somewhat limited offense is better suited for tag team wrestling. It is a shame that it all came at the expense of Royce and Kay. They are getting started as champions, but they are already getting squashed. As to another reason as to why they shouldn't be champions in the first place. But it will be interesting to see what comes of Sasha Banks in the upcoming weeks. Hopefully we see her on SmackDown. Please. Braun Strowman sends EC3 through the States. This was... I don't understand what this was. EC3, basically, he demanded competition because he was just tired of being in catering. He was tired of losing matches. He wanted a fight. He got one. Braun Strowman comes out. The match never got started. Braun took out EC3. EC3 didn't get any offense in. And Braun just literally chokeslammed EC3 through the fucking stage. And it was brutal. Unbelievable. While this was enjoyable on the surface, it was not just unnecessary, but outright problematic if there's any hope for EC3's WWE future. The talented and charismatic star came back from the company as the prototypical star it should love, instead has been completely disrespected. Braun Strowman may have embarrassed many bigger stars, but all of them had done something in WWE before this point. EC3's biggest moment on the main roster so far is rolling up Dean Ambrose on his way out before giving that win back the next week. I don't know what they're doing with EC3. I really don't know. You might as well send him back to Impact Wrestling if you're not going to use him properly, because nobody wants to see him at this point. Another star who shouldn't have been called up too soon, and now they're not even doing anything with him. It's sad that a big guy, such a great star from Impact Wrestling, and Ethan Carter III, EC3, you would think would be a top star in WWE, and you know he was all right in NXT, but he could definitely get better if they didn't call him up so early. He could have been NXT for like another year or two, but they wanted to call him up for no fucking reason. And now he's being treated like No Way Jose, and it's just downright pathetic. I'd much rather see EC3 become a world champion, just like he was in Impact Wrestling. Like, is that so hard to ask for? Ridiculous. Becky Lynch versus Ruby Riott. Becky arrived with confidence as the Riott Squad had no answer to her quickness and focus. Sarah and Liv helped Ruby escape the disarmor, but it was short-lived. The champs took out the trio and made a Riott tap out. Becky looked like a legitimate badass here. This was freaking great. You know, she literally didn't have anybody in her corner. She just took out the entire Riott Squad herself. First, she, did her T-bone suplex to Liv Morgan on the barricade outside. And then she took out Sarah Logan, and then she tapped out Ruby Riott within minutes. And it was just, wow. That's a fucking champion right there. Natalya came out to officially challenge the man for the Raw Women's title after the match. As Lynch was ready to officially take that on, out comes Lacey Evans, and she taunted both women before announcing that she would finally be competing. Wow. She would fight the Queen of Hearts right now to name the new number one contender for the Raw Women's title. The sassy Southern Belle managed to survive a long time, the sharpshooter, and make it to the ropes. This was a boring match, man. Natalya and Lacey Evans, they have no chemistry together. The match was just flat out boring and nobody cared. The only thing that was enjoyable in this match was the ending, when Lacey Evans hit that beautiful moonsault where she was on the second rope, the middle rope, and she jumped from there up to the top rope, and she hit a moonsault. Beautifully done. And Lacey Evans defeated Natalya, and now apparently, since Lacey's been attacking Becky for the past weeks. She's going to be getting a Raw Women's title match, which, okay. So these back-to-back segments felt largely underwhelming. Lynch is great, we all know that, but she should not be dominated the Riot Squad the way she did. I mean, I think she should have, and she did. That was great. You know, it makes Ruby Riott look weak because Ruby's one of the best on the roster. We all know that. But, like, I mean, you want to have Becky be a badass as the champion, there you go. So she made the trio look even worse than it already has. It was telling that WWE decided to follow it up by establishing Lacey Evans and Natalya as the top women on Raw. Neither comes up as a legitimate main eventer for the brand, but there may not be many more great options unless a few more from SmackDown make the jump to Raw. The division is in flux right now. It is hard to say who will make the leap to the top. Evans will get the first shot, but she's got a ways to go to prove that she deserves it. We get to our main event. It was announced earlier in the show that Roman Reigns and the Universal Champion Seth Rollins will be teaming with a mystery partner, somebody who's going to be jumping ship from SmackDown Live to Monday Night Raw, against Corbin, Lashley, and McIntyre in the main event. And it was none other than AJ Styles. We all knew it was coming, because how long has Mr. McMahon been wanting AJ Styles on Raw? About 2 years now, and it finally happened. There's a backstage segment with Reigns and Rollins before the match, and Charlie was backstage with Reigns and Rollins, and she was asking about this third partner, and it's funny because you know, they were right by the locker room, and the door opened, and you saw like a hat, and you couldn't really see like what the logo was or whatever, but I'm sure if you pause on the screen, you'd probably be able to tell if it was AJ Styles, since his logo is like very, very recognizable. But yeah, so Styles was revealed as the mystery partner for Rollins and Reigns against Baron Corbin, Bobby Lashley, and Drew McIntyre in the main event, and be the final big star to jump to Monday Night Raw. And Styles looking more like himself from TNA. Just he's got the long hair, but he trimmed his beard. He's got the 5 o'clock shadow, and he looks different. So that's interesting. But the Phenomenal One showcases his impressive athleticism throughout, but the Scottish psychopath stopped him in his tracks with a Claymore kick. Reigns and Rollins were then forced to send McIntyre into the crowd and take back control of the match. Lashley took a stomp and then into his spirit, and then a phenomenal forearm to get the faces the win. Reigns, Rollins, and Styles defeated Corbin, Lashley, and McIntyre in the main event. Now, it felt inevitable that Styles would finally move to Raw after years working for only SmackDown Live, but it was still a special moment to see him instantly become one of the top stars on the Red brand with his performance on Monday. There are a host of exciting matches for the Phenomenal One in the coming months based on who stays on a Red brand after night 2 of the Superstar Shakeup. More than anything, though, the big money match has to be Rollins versus Styles for the Universal Championship, which could possibly be taking place at SummerSlam this year. If it does, then that is going to be a fucking barn burner match. That is a dream match I've been wanting for so long. AJ Styles versus Seth Rollins. Who the fuck does not want to see that? Dream match right there. We might be seeing it at SummerSlam, man. If you really want to sell tickets out for SummerSlam, that is the match that should definitely be taking place for the Universal title. Take my fucking money. So that's night 1 of the Superstar Shakeup. Once again, we have Andrade Cien Almas and Zelina Vega, Naomi, the Usos, the Miz, Eric Young. Yeah, Eric Young was split up from Sanity, and he's now part of Monday Night Raw. Very, very odd. So they broke up Sanity, and they broke up the Riot Squad as well. We'll talk about that in the next SmackDown Live review. And then, of course, you saw AJ Styles. Ricochet and Aleister Black that are also on Raw. So, we got a pretty decent roster for Raw. Pretty stacked. We'll be seeing who's going to be jumping ship to SmackDown in the next review. So, yeah, guys, if you enjoyed my Raw review, night 1 of the Superstar Shakeup, day 1, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, favorite. Okay, the like button out of nowhere, excuse me. And tap the bell for notifications so you get my future uploads coming. And I will see you all in the SmackDown Live review, day number 2 of the Superstar Shakeup, coming soon. I'll see you guys then.